It's time to lead. Lead for affordable gas, groceries, and homes. That's why today I'm calling on the government to suspend all fuel taxes for the rest of the year.
Opposition leader there, Pierre Poilievre, calling for a temporary pause on federal taxes on diesel and gas as a global energy crisis impacts costs here in Canada, too. How is Ottawa responding to the pressure, or is it? Let's bring in our Sunday Scrum. Nick Taylor-Vaisey is the Ottawa bureau chief for Politico, co-host of the Playbook Canada podcast. Emilie, Nicolas, a columnist for Le Devoir. She's in Montreal this morning. Gary Mason, a columnist for the Globe and Mail, and he's in Vancouver. Thank you all for being here, particularly on a long weekend. I appreciate you squeezing me in. I should say that the Prime Minister was asked about the high prices of gas, and he said sort of, we'll wait and see. Maybe there'll be something in the spring economic update. I think Pierre Poilievre had a good point, Nick, because this is really an affordability issue, and he's trying to tap into it. Whether the policy response is the right one or not, I don't know. But what do you make of his call for action and then the government saying, maybe we'll get around to it?
Well, if Canada did cut the gas tax, they wouldn't be alone, right? European countries and others around the world are all sort of taking action to give people immediate relief. Because what the government might say is eventually we'll give a rebate. This is a sort of a popular Liberal government response to this sort of thing. But the thing about the rebate is it's retroactive, and people really can't wait. People are really, they're struggling now. When you go to grocery stores, you see what people are buying at the cash register. I mean, they're buying the cheapest food they possibly can, and then they got to go fill up their tank, and they can't do it. And so most economists will say that a rebate is the most efficient thing to do because it means that those who don't need to pay won't, and those who need relief will eventually get it. But speed's the problem here.
Yeah, and to that end, I mean, I think I saw, Emilie, and you would know better, you're in Montreal. I think prices hit $2 in Montreal. They certainly have out on the West Coast where Gary is. But this is like this is not just a problem right now. It's a problem on top of another problem and another problem. And I wonder how or if Ottawa should act quickly on this.
It's a little bit of a brain issue in a sense that there is food, there is rent, and there is gas, right? Those are the three things that come to our mind the most. And I don't see that energy for renters. And I don't see that energy for food insecurity in the country. And so it's like we want to help the people with the car. Part of it is because we see the signs at the side of our street jumping at us with the big prices. I wonder if there were more solutions for food insecurity or for poverty in this country, if it was the price of eggs or the price of bread or the price of milk that had big red numbers flashing on the side of the road as well. And so this one is very immediate. It's on it's on the brain of everyone. Because of just the way that, you see it at the pump and it's just screaming at you from the side of the highway. But the affordability crisis is more complex than this.
Sure.
And there is that risk of helping people who don't need it and not helping people who do need it the most. We have a homelessness crisis in this country.
Yeah.
But it's not screaming at us in the same way. And so we really need to be smart about the policy aspect of it. But there's always that urge to act on what is the most evident rather than what is necessarily the most effective in actually relieving the crisis in this country.
Yeah, those are all excellent points. And Gary, as someone who is dealing with really high prices out there, this also may not, I don't know how this conflict is going to end, if it's going to be another 2 or 3 weeks, but it also may, things may smooth out in some ways. And maybe that's not the right place to put the government's attention in terms of affordability, as Emilie points out.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. We don't know how long this is going to drag on for. And most analysts don't expect gasoline prices to drop immediately after the war ends.
Right.
We don't know, for instance, whether Iran is going to continue to, levy a transit fee to get oil out of the strait. But I just going back to this idea of Poilievre's just to drop all gasoline taxes. Well, that they represent about $7 billion of funds for the federal government. So if you drop those taxes for the rest of the year, you're talking about like a $3.5 billion hole in your budget.
Yep.
I mean, where is that money going to come from? Are you going to scale back in other areas, or are you just going to add to the already ballooning deficit that the Conservatives are lambasting the Liberals over, quite rightly? So, and the other thing is, in BC, as you say, we have the highest gas taxes in the country, 63 cents per liter. That's a combination of municipal, provincial, and federal. And all that money is spoken for. I mean, there's no way BC is going to scale back any of that at the gas pump, because that money is spoken for in terms of infrastructure, transit infrastructure, all sorts of things.
Sure.
So, and the other thing I think, Rosie, finally, is that we don't know, this conflict may end, but it may have caused a recession, a global recession by the end of it. And so the government has to hold its powder to some extent to see what it's going to be dealing with when the smoke proverbially, finally clears, So they may have other issues that they're worrying about and having to spend money on.
Yeah, I mean, Nick, that those are good points. I mean, as prices go up, that is beneficial to government coffers. And while you might want to give that back to Canadians, there may be other places to use it, to Emilie's point as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Every dollar not raised by the government means that a social program that will also help people who need it doesn't have that at its disposal.
That's right.
But I think when you think about what Poilievre is proposing, he's doing the kind of pure Poilievre thing, which is saying, let's cut the tax on gas for the whole year. But around the world, the countries that are taking action are not all going that far for that long. Mm-hmm. So you could have a time-limited sort of measure that responds to some sort of short-term, get people a little more, a little further down the road without going to the end of the year. The idea itself, I mean, Emilie, just to go back to what you're saying, to give all that money back to people driving cars and farmers, like our friend that we just were spoken to, maybe that makes sense. But I would imagine that the Prime Minister is going to have to consider other things as well.
Absolutely. And amongst those things, there is the fact that the geopolitics of it, aren't we just making Donald Trump's terrible catastrophes just more sustainable by making are we just enabling him by basically having all the Western governments cutting themselves off revenues as to subsidize Donald Trump's foolishness? Is that what we're doing? The second thing that we need to ask ourselves is, Pierre Poilievre doesn't want to have a tax break just before the end of the year. Obviously, this is just pushing the ball further down the road in terms of making a dent into the system and questioning oil taxes for good. And it's never going to be popular for the government to put the taxes back up. And so wouldn't be just creating a political problem just further down the road in a couple of months.
Yeah.
And then there is the question, I cannot still believe how rich it is for, during that same week, have the leader of the opposition question the high-speed rail train, and basically the idea that we should also invest in infrastructure that makes Canadians less dependent on their cars, and therefore the volatility of oil prices, which is always going to be a thing as long as the geopolitics is what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
And so and that has also been the case in Europe with the war in Russia, trying to invest in transitioning away. And this needs to be as part of the conversation as much as, immediate relief.
I got to go. Thank you all. Nick Taylor-Vaisey, Emilie, Nicolas, Gary Mason, thanks for spending part of your Easter Sunday with me. I appreciate it.